That brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action regarding a letter of concern for compliance issues at the Domino Bar. In our past couple of meetings, we've talked about the fact that it's been observed that the Domino Bar has not been consistently open and using its Class B license. At our last meeting, we directed the clerk's office to issue a formal letter of concern and invite the license holder to address the committee on what their plan is to get open and stay open to use that license within compliance. It looks like the license holder is Brogan Milbrandt. Is Brogan here? Okay, if you'd like to come up to the podium and outline for us what your plan of operation is to utilize that license.
So the plan of operation moving forward is we actually have it listed on the market. We have a show
Can you
today.
speak up, please?
The plan of operation is we listed it on the market to be sold. And the plan is to hopefully, if you guys would let us, keep the liquor license in place, at least if we can do 90 days to have that set. And then if we don't have any action in 90 days, then we would take steps moving forward to, I guess, reopen full.
The trouble we have is that liquor licenses obviously are limited in availability. There are other businesses that desire them. And in the past, when we have given an extension for non-operation, it's been for reasons other than the place is for sale. We've had owners and license holders that have been ill, that have been unable to operate, but at some point, where the rubber meets the road is the place needs to be open and the license needs to be used. And so the license is a privilege, but it's not a property right. It can't be sold with the establishment anyway.
Sure.
So obviously it would be surrendered, and whoever buys the place would have to reapply just like you did when you took over the place, and go through the same process with the license review subcommittee, who would make a determination as to whether or not that license would even be awarded to the applicant. There's always an option, or there's always a possibility that answer may be no.
Sure.
You know, obviously we get that authority. I think it's difficult though to know that a place is holding a license and intends to never be open at all, and for us to grant an extended period of time. 90 days is a long time. That's the rest of the summer and beyond. You know, and I don't know that that's fair to the license holders who get open, stay open, and operate using the privilege that they've been given on a daily basis. It's a difficult lift for me to sit here and preach about using a license and then give someone 90 days to not do it. So I guess I don't.
Is there any other businesses in the area that have a liquor license that are not using it currently? Like coffee shops and things like that? That have been extended longer than 90 days?
Not that I'm aware of. We've had some that have had extensions for illness. We've had some that have had extensions for construction delays, you know, when they were trying to get open or trying to remodel. But, you know, when the place is functional and ready to use and just isn't used, you know, in that case, I think at least on one of those occasions, we took the license back. So, you know, I guess what I was hoping to see from you as the license holder is a plan to be open to the public and hold hours on the establishment and allow that commerce to take place. And
Which is very possible. That's something, if that's what needs to be done, it can be done. Like I said, at this point, our plan was to sell the business. If that is not an option for the 90 days, I understand. I appreciate your guys' time. But then I guess the plan would be moving forward would be to open that. At least assigned days of the week.
I feel like it needs to be open. I mean, it's licensed for an active business, and you know, part of the reason we have what's called the abandonment ordinance is to make sure that the licenses we award get used for the purpose for which they're intended. Ordinarily, if we have licenses come available and we make them available to the public, there's multiple applications for those licenses because there's other businesses waiting to start that would very much like them. So, you know, I feel like if a license isn't being used, that, you know, out of all fairness to those who we have required to get open and stay open, you know, that it makes sense that you also should be open and be using that privilege. Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark this on the calendar. I agree with you.
It happens sometimes.
I think that, you know, this license has been abused already. I don't think it probably hasn't been open for the last 60 to 90 days. And to ask for another 90-day extension, to me, is totally unacceptable. I was hoping that they would come here with a plan to open and stay open, you know, but I just can't see.
That is possible. That's what you
I have the
prefer.
floor, please, sir. Thank you. I was hoping they would come here with a plan, and they haven't produced a plan to stay open, or open and stay open. So I don't know at this point if I can grant an extension or not.
I feel like that is my take on it is if there's nothing preventing you from being open, it needs to be open. So I mean, that's just out of fairness to all the other license holders that are held to the same standard. You know, and I just talked about being consistent with how we make our decisions. Our message to people who hold licenses is use them, because if they're not getting used, there's other people who would very much like to use them and conduct that same business in Wausau. So I guess committee members, do you have either questions for Mr. Milbrandt or comments?
I guess I have one
Go ahead,
question. Is there anything that's preventing you from being open otherwise? Like, I guess.
Yes, we did have some issues in opening. It was through the purchase of the business. So there was a third party involved in it that had our website that would not relinquish it, even though it was in part of, I know that has nothing to do with this committee, but part of the deal where we were supposed to purchase it, and any of the Facebook rights or anything like that came with it. And instead, the person was upset because the person that sold, they lost their job, and so they have the rights to all those because they built those websites and things. And so when you look at Google, it marked as permanently closed and there's no way to change it. I contacted Google on numerous occasions and they said ultimately your only course of action is to change the name. They said otherwise every time you Google it, it's going to say permanently closed. And they made a website that says in memory of Domino Bar, making it incredibly difficult to do any sort of business at all because we'd be open and people would walk in and be like, oh my gosh, you guys are open. I'm like, yeah, we're open. And they're like, oh, it says online you guys are permanently closed. And so we went through this for a number of months. And in talking to the other people, I guess aside from, trying to, go to court about it, which is not really something I prefer to do. I'm much more just handle things, adults. And ultimately they weren't willing to work with us, so it's stated permanently closed. So it really did hinder our ability to do business and use our liquor license. So, at this point, I think if it is something that we intend to move forward, we're going to have to do a change in name to be able to, run an established business because it seemed like there was a lot stacked against us because obviously things did change. The $2 beers were no longer, and we had a little bit nicer place. We remodeled it and made it a little bit nicer place to go. And then there's people that can attest to that, and that wasn't accepted by the old owner's family members that ran the social media and things like that. So that was kind of the reason that kind of led us to hoping to sell. If it does need to be open, we understand. We're willing to comply with that, comply with any licensing that's necessary, and we can do that moving forward. It just didn't seem to be working in the sense it was just because of that issue that we had run into.
Yeah, I think that, I guess with regard to Google listings and social media, have you made an effort to leverage local advertising? To bring people in separate from what you would find online, I guess?
We even had, so previously we had sold it since, but we had a food truck that was very popular. And we had used our account from our food truck to try to say, hey, this is the new Domino Bar, and try to use that. And then they since went, the same person, since went from there to the other one and tried to, they're a web developer, so they're a lot better at the internet than I am. And so they kind of went through there and did the exact same thing with that. And I don't know if you want to use the word canceled, but canceled that as well. So yes, we did try to take corrective action and we're unsuccessful. So I think the only thing we could do at this point, like I said, would be to probably do some sort of name change.
Right, and obviously you have the option to retool. You remodeled just like you did when you got it. You have the option to, operate under some different trade name or whatever. But I think that an effort needs to be made to open and remain open so that people can see that license is being used. And, just the idea that it would remain closed and sit, and that really then also sends a message out to every other license holder that if they're interested in selling it and leveraging their ability to sell it contingent upon the fact that it holds a license, we will see all kinds of abandonment issues because the message cannot get out that people can sit on a license, not use a license, and still have one. And so, just because we have worked hard to prevent that in the past, we just cannot let it start now. I really feel like you need to get open.
I understand.
To the extent that that's possible. So, anybody else have comments about? Go ahead, Cody.
No, go ahead, Cody.
I was going to ask, so is it your intention to make your renewal paperwork and apply for your license? Because as of right now, we don't have that.
Yep, so what I was told is that there would be, because we were supposed to wait and see how this meeting went, that was kind of the plan. So given where it's at, we would just pay for the new license and the I don't know if it's the fee, for the late filing fee, and we could take care of that, that's no issue.
I believe with that, as of right now, because we could issue a provisional license at the next Public Health and Safety Committee, but your license expires on 30th of this
Yes.
month. So there would be a period of time at 30th until we issue a provisional that you guys would have to close.
Well, I think the provisional is the answer for the gap. So if you have received the provisional paperwork, my understanding was that you could award that provisional that allows them the interim operation until we actually approve the renewal at Public Health and Safety. So the provision should bridge the gap between July 1st and the July meeting, yes.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, so, yep, and so that, contingent upon receipt of the appropriate paperwork, that's what needs to happen. Luke?
Then I guess the provisional license would also give them a timeline. What kind of timeline do we give them to reopen, to get open? A week, a month?
Well, they're still under their current license, which gives them the next 2 weeks before the provisional is even needed, so they have until the 30th. And
to reopen?
Yes, they could reopen tonight if they had to. The license they have is still valid.
So if they're not open by the 1st of July, when the provisional license takes place, we can deny that provisional
The renewal.
license at the next meeting?
Correct.
So I guess you have 2 weeks.
Right, that's kind of, yeah, I mean, it needs to get open because that is the other thing. There's consideration to be had about whether or not we want to renew it if we're not seeing positive progress. So I guess let's get that, work with the clerk's office to get that taken care of, to bridge that gap. And then at our next meeting, obviously, if that paperwork's in line, we would have that among the batch for consideration. So,
Thank you for
all
your
right,
time.
thank you for coming in.